Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Unleashing Potentials podcast. So, joining me today is Bethany from Indiana. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on today.
Me too. I'm excited to have you because you do have a podcast. So, we get each other right away.
We do.
What is your podcast called again?
Sure. So it's called Breastfeeding Relief with Bethany, and I interview moms one on one to talk about their breastfeeding journey. But it's not just moms who breastfeed. I'm also talking to pumping moms, NICU moms, preemie moms, moms that didn't produce milk. And so I'm just trying to say that, we are taught that it should be easy and natural, and it is not, mamas. And so I'm just trying to get the word out to all these new moms that feel like they're failing, that you are not alone, and to reach out for help.
That's awesome. I'm excited to get into this a bit later in the conversation. But I would like to know more about you. Tell us more. Who is Bethany? What do you do? You just told us, but tell us more.
Yeah, so I'm a speech language pathologist. And so when I first got out of school, I really wanted to go into elementary schools, but I got out in the wintertime when schools were already halfway through. And so I could not find a job in the schools because all the jobs were filled. And so I took a nursing home job. I was like, I do not want to be in nursing homes. They smell like pee. I ended up staying for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
I know. Yeah. And so slowly I started climbing that corporate ladder. I then ran a nursing home with a physical and occupational therapist under me. Loved that. My boss then asked me to step up, and I ran 7 nursing homes for 2 years.
Mhm.
Within the state of Illinois, central Illinois. Loved that. Then we had our first son. And I had always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. We struggled with infertility for 5 years. And so I definitely wanted to be a stay-at-home mom.
Mhm.
So loved that. However, things we don't talk about as mom is your mental health. And so all of a sudden, you have a baby. And so everyone was so respectful that nobody was calling me, texting me, emailing me questions from work. And I did not feel needed anymore.
Mhm.
And that really affected my mental health, even though there's this baby that needs you all the time and you're changing diapers, you're breastfeeding, you're up in the middle of the night, but it's a different need. And I just didn't feel needed anymore in the corporate sense.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, So I got connected with a mom's group. It was a breastfeeding moms group, and that really helped a lot because you also feel sometimes as a first time mom, you don't know what you don't know. And so you're so afraid your baby's not getting milk. You're so afraid they aren't sleeping right. And then you're like, oh, there's a sleep regression.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's just so good to connect with other moms. And then we had our second son. He was a surprise. So we had gone through IVF, and then we get surprise, a second baby, which was absolutely amazing, but I was not expecting it. So our boys are 16 and a half months apart. So super close, 202, 2 in cribs. And then a pandemic hits 3 months later after we have our son. So moms groups close. I did like a Zoom moms group, which is super interesting. I don't, it's hard to connect one on one with moms through a Zoom group. It was awesome for the time.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't recommend you aren't going to get those close connections, right? Just on 20 women on Zoom.
Mhm. Mhm.
So from there, I did go back working in the schools. Then I found a school job virtually because we need so much help virtually at the time, and so I did go back working in the schools on Zoom. Started out during their nap time, and since it's grown a little bit more. And our second son had a tongue tie. That's my passion right now. That's my platform.
Mhm.
And so it was not caught in the hospital. And as a speech therapist, we were taught about it with maybe one day of classes. But of course, speech therapists, we work in the mouth, we work on articulation and language. And I was just shocked at how much I did not know about tongue ties.
Mm,
And so our son was tongue tied. He got it revised, but it was not corrected fully. And so at 3 years old, he had it revised again because I didn't realize all of his developmental issues were connected to his tongue tie once I started researching it, digging into it. And so he didn't walk until 18 months. He drooled constantly. So having a 3-year-old that's constantly drooling, having to change his shirt 3 times a day, when he can't even color because his page is covered in drool and it's like just like disintegrating.
mm,
Um, and so because of all those problems, we did get it revised again at the age of 3 with an ENT. And it was night and day differences. And so it's absolutely amazing. So I want to help other moms on their journey, to not have the journey that I did, that didn't realize, that it was not revised correctly, or to give them better outcomes and not wait. Now, sometimes it's good to wait because we need to look at function and if it's not affecting breastfeeding. But I want to help moms make a good informed decision and work with a team approach, which I did not have and did not know at the time,
mhm,
that a whole team approach needs to help your child move forward.
mhm. Oh
So
my,
that's a little
I
bit
love
about me.
this. Oh, I love what you do and what you stand for and how you do it. I can tell you love it and you're so passionate about it. I love that. It's so contagious, the type of hope that you're giving women. My son still have speech issues. I call them speech delay, but I had
Mhm,
to see a speech pathologist as well.
mhm,
And in his school, they have workers and other speech therapists that are there that are helping, and it's a continuous struggle. Um, for me, there was and is at time guilt that is attached to it. It's like, what am I doing wrong as a mother? And I
mm,
question my ability to parent. It wasn't
mm,
necessarily coming from my heart as a mother, it was coming from my environment and what people had
mm,
to say about my child, and
mhm,
including my family, right? Or is his speech better? Why isn't he speaking well by this age? From
mm,
my own family,
mhm,
that it still cuts me pretty deep,
mhm,
because as mothers, we do everything in our powers to nourish our child. We want
mhm.
the absolute best for them. When we have people questioning um, things that they have to overcome as little beings, it truly cuts very deep. What are your thoughts?
That is so true. And I tell moms, especially with a tongue tie, it's not your fault. Right. And so if your breastfeeding journey isn't going well, look at what those underlying causes are specifically. And so a lot of times I find if you aren't getting a good latch, if your nipples hurt, if they're bleeding, if you're getting clogged ducts, right?
Mhm,
There's an underlying factor to that. And it could be because your baby can't latch deep enough because of a lip tie, because of a tongue tie. And so I felt that as a mom. I totally hear where you're coming from because I never looked at a tongue tie again because I had it revised.
mhm,
And so it was fixed in my mind. And I never went and looked at his tongue again until we went to the dentist when he was about 2.5 years old. And she goes, "Your son has a tongue tie." And I go, "No, he doesn't. It was revised." And she goes, "No, come look." And so then I felt like an awful mom as a speech therapist that I hadn't checked again.
mhm,
But yet in my mom gut, so moms, listen up. This is my secret sauce. If you feel in your mom gut that something's wrong, go get a second opinion. Go find someone who will listen to you that something's wrong. So I knew something was wrong when he wasn't walking at 12 months. And I said, "I need a referral." And they said, "Oh, you still have time." And I said, "The wait list here in America are 3 months sometimes. So go ahead and put me on it. And I can always cancel the evaluation."
mhm,
But I knew something was wrong. And even that physical therapist didn't connect that something was wrong. But I kept saying, he shouldn't be drooling this much.
mhm,
He's 2. Like, well, at the time, he was younger. But even at 2, I kept saying, even to my pediatrician, I don't understand why we're drooling. What is the issue? Well, maybe it's neurological and maybe it's, something else. But that's my biggest thing is please go get a second opinion. Please get a third opinion. Please reach out and find someone that will listen to you, all the signs and symptoms that are going on with your child, to get a good diagnosis or even get like a good therapist that can help you out.
Yeah, you're right. That inspires me to get a second opinion. It's relating to his eyes. I don't know if he's allergic to our cats or not,
Mm.
but his eyes, you can see them.
Mm.
It's just weird. He's never had that. I went to see an eye doctor. She's like, it's normal. I'm like, no, it's not. I know my child.
Mm.
I'm
Mhm.
around him all the time.
Mhm.
And we know our kids best because we
We
spend
do.
time with them. We know.
Mhm.
I wish that practitioners, other people would, kind of listen
Mhm.
and hear
Mhm.
what we have to share and say.
Mhm.
Let's talk a little bit about infertility.
Sure.
Give me your opinion, your story. You can share as much or as little as you want to. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. So me and my husband had been married for 5 years. When we first got married, we were young. I don't always recommend getting married young. I was 21, he was 23. And I said, I don't want to have kids until I am done with grad school. I had just started grad school. And then we still have a clinical fellowship year, which is a year before I'm fully licensed. And I said, please don't ask for kids until I am done with that because I want to be fully licensed and not have to have a baby and trying to go to clinicals or have a baby and trying to fill all of these hours. And so then I still wanted to work for a few years before we started to try for kids. So then we started to try for kids. And, that first year, it's kind of fun, right? And then after a year, you're like, why isn't this happening for us? Because it feels like it's happening to everyone, like you don't see something until, you're trying for something, right? Or it's even like when you're buying a new car, like, oh, there's not a whole lot of whatever car on the road. And then you buy the car and you're like, everyone has a Ford, So it's the same thing. You're like, gosh, everyone's getting pregnant or having, there was a while hashtag oop baby, and you're like, oh, but why can't I get pregnant? And so then we started looking into blood work and then they're like, oh, we'll try Clomid on you. And so my mom actually got pregnant on Clomid, which I didn't realize. And so I was like, oh, great, I'll get pregnant first time on Clomid. So after 5 rounds of Clomid, I still wasn't pregnant. And so they're like, you need to go see an IVF doctor. And I was like, okay. And so I was diagnosed with unexplained infertility. And so basically we have no idea what's wrong with you, but you're young, you're in good health, you exercise, you eat well, you aren't a diabetic. We have no idea. And so then we did 5 rounds of IUI, which is intrauterine insemination. And so they take the sperm, they clean it, and then they put it into me. They also give you a few shots. And then let's see here, my 3rd round worked, but my pregnancy test came back negative. They didn't do blood work. You just take a pregnancy test at home. It said negative. I went on with my life. And then a week later, I was having awful stabbing pain. Well, I had an ectopic pregnancy going on. And so I called them and I said, I'm having a lot of pain. Of course, it's Friday. Of course. And so they were like, well, if you're having enough pain, just go to the ER. And I was like, no, I don't want to go to the ER. Like, I bet I'm fine. And so by Monday, I called again and I said, I'm still having awful pain. Will you please see me and do blood work? I don't know what's going on. And of course, they took blood work. They called me 2 hours later and they're like, you're pregnant, get into the office. And I was like, there's no way I'm pregnant. So then, of course, they did an ultrasound. They can't find the baby. They wanted a second opinion, sent me to another OBGYN who apparently had better ultrasound. They could not find the baby and they're like, it's an ectopic pregnancy. And so then I had to take medicine for that. So that was super hard. And I told my husband, we need to take a break. I can't continue. I need a mental break. So I took 6 months off, which you're after an ectopic pregnancy, right? You're not supposed to try to get pregnant for at least 3 months. So we took time off. We had 2 more IUIs. And then the IVF doctor said, you really need to do IVF. She was like, you're just throwing money down the drain now. And so we said, okay. And so in January of 2017, we decided, okay, well, we'll go ahead and do a round of IVF, but it's also super expensive, right? And so between the meds, we were lucky. My husband's insurance covered some of it, not all of it, but we were thankful for that because I had a cousin who also did IVF and they didn't cover a dime.
Wow.
And so he's paying cash down in Florida. I'm at least getting a discount on meds because meds run about $1,000. And so I was lucky we got them for about 200, right?
Yeah.
So that was amazing. But, you're still making this huge investment to try to have a baby. So we did the first round. It worked. I miscarried. Then I said, I don't want to wait. Let's do it again. And we always did fresh cycles. So that means that they watch the embryo grow for about 5 days and then they put the embryo back in you. And my doctor's really big on you only put in one embryo because she doesn't like multiple. She doesn't like the triplets, the quads, all that kind of stuff. That's kind of the new philosophy is what I understand, that we want one healthy baby, which can still split into twins, right? But
yeah,
we don't want to up your chances. And so then we did a second round. That round, they again was a fresh cycle and we only ended up with one embryo that was good. And so they transferred on day 3 instead of day 5, which is what's recommended because they didn't want that embryo to die. Again, I got pregnant and lost that baby. And I said, no more. I mentally cannot take it. And our insurance would only cover 6 rounds of IVF. And so I was like, well, we've already wasted 2 and I just can't. I can't. Yeah. And so that cycle ended up into May when I miscarried that baby. So then finally, it was around my birthday in September. I finally said, okay, let's try it one more time. And then I'm done. Because again, it's so not only mentally draining, it's physically draining on a woman's body because I was taking 4 shots a day during the day. And then at night, you have to take a progesterone shot into basically your butt. And then you get these huge welts and knots, and it hurts so bad. You get these welts. It hurts to sit. You have to take it for about like 10 weeks, right? So after you miscarry the baby, it ends up being like 5-6 weeks. But then if you have a pregnancy go full term, it ends up being like 10-12 weeks, depending on what your doctor recommends. And so like, it's just draining, and I'm working full time because we have to continue to pay for this, So I finally said, okay, we'll do one more. So we call the doctor. We end up doing it in November, having the transfer of the embryo. And we actually did get a son, a live birth off that. And so we had our oldest son. At 12 weeks, I started spotting. I had this huge meltdown. Oh my gosh, it's happening again. I'm losing this baby. I was put on bed rest, but apparently with IVF transfers, usually around 12 weeks, you do start spotting, which was something I was not made aware of. So I feel like you sit in anxiety the whole pregnancy because you're so afraid you're going to lose that baby. So literally after I had our son and we're like being wheeled out of the hospital, I'm like bawling my eyes out. And I remember my mother-in-law was with me. My husband was getting a car and my mother-in-law goes, honey, it'll be okay. We're coming home with you. And I was like, that's not why I'm crying. Like, I never thought this day would come. I never thought we would ever bring home a child. And it's actually happening because you just live in such fear and anxiety, that you never feel like it's ever going to come to fruition with all of these losses. Oh, so anyways, yeah. So that's my IVF story. That was 5 years there.
Oh no, it's all good. I think that your story is a pilot. It's a guide,
Hmm.
not for everybody. For me, anyone
Hmm.
can be listening
Hmm.
and gain insight on your
Hmm.
experience.
Hmm.
Again, I'm sorry you went through that. That is a lot, and I can definitely understand how it would impact you mentally, physically.
Hmm.
That's hard stuff, and not everyone understand the amount of pain that women and families go through
Hmm.
just to have their own babies and expand their family. So
Hmm.
thank you for expressing that in so much details, and I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you.
You
Um,
know, the nice thing, it was hard, but the nice thing that's come out of this is, we let people know really afterward. Like when we announced that we were pregnant, I did it with like all of the shot needles. And how many people reach out and said, oh, we did that too. That's never been verbal on social media, or have reached out afterwards and said, hey, I'm going through this too. Can I chat with you about what's going on? And so that's been amazing that I feel women can reach out and chat about it that don't feel like they can be open with their family. Which has been amazing. I only had one person say, like, oh, you took that picture for effect. You didn't use all of those needles. And I said, no, I literally kept all the needles because I wanted to show everyone how much pain we've been through.
yes, yes, you're right. It's painful.
Mm-hmm.
And you're creating a platform for women. As you just said, it's not always easy to talk to family about that kind of stuff. Even our own family members can judge our decisions and
Mm-hmm.
choices.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that you have that platform, it means a lot. And tell me more. There's so much to cover. What is a topic pregnancy for people who's never heard of that name or term?
Sure. So an ectopic pregnancy is where your egg comes down your fallopian tubes, but then it gets stuck, but the sperm fertilizes it in the fallopian tubes, and then it's stuck. It can't keep traveling. So it like implants into your tubes. And so I am lucky and blessed that I had people listening through to me, that we were going to an IVF clinic at the time, because I've heard from like friends and on social media that sometimes it's not caught and people don't listen to you. And as the baby continues to grow, your tube actually can like explode. And then they have to go to emergency surgery, and then you lose the fallopian tube and
Wow.
oh, I can't think of the word, the sac where all your eggs are. Um,
Oh, yeah, ovarian, is that the word?
Ovaries. There you go. Yeah,
Okay.
you lose an ovary, right?
Yeah.
And so then your chances of getting pregnant again go down by 50% because you only have, one ovary. So I was very blessed that that didn't happen to us. But I have known lots of people that have happened to.
Oh my, that's heartbreaking and
Mhm.
traumatizing.
Mhm. Yeah.
I wish society would give us a break. I wish, I truly do wish, because um, there's always people who are judging what
Mm.
mothers are doing and how they do it. And it's no surprise that most mothers do struggle mentally,
Mhm.
because they're doing everything they can to raise a family, have a family, nurture their kids. And there are those who take the time out of their day or time just to criticize and judge what they do.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I especially feel for the moms. This happened to us before we had kids. And so I had PTO time. I could take time off.
Mhm.
I feel bad for the moms that this is happening to them like a second or a third time, right? Like those moms that feel like their families aren't complete and want to continue to grow their families. And then they're dealing with the secondary infertility. Like I cannot imagine trying to take all those shots, hit all the appointments, especially like when you're in your window, you're going to that doctor every day to get blood work, to make sure everything's going okay. The transfer, you can't lift children, anything over 10 pounds.
Mhm.
That's who my heart goes out to now, of all those mamas. I can't imagine trying to do that and chase a 2-year-old around.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Let's touch a little bit about stay-at-home moms. I am a stay-at-home mom. I
Mhm.
have been judged. I won't name the person, but the person hopefully watching this knows that I stay at home. I do nothing. I'm lazy. I don't work,
Mhm.
and I'm not contributing to society.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Gosh, I hate that for you. I also was a stay-at-home mom for a very long time.
Mm,
There were circumstances that I had to go back to work for a little bit, part-time. And for me, it's also good for my mental health to feel needed in a different way. But that's not everyone's journey. That's not everyone. I have a cousin that actually has 11 kiddos, and of course, she stays at home full time, right? Um, but if you want to stay at home, I think that is the hardest job, right? Because you never get PTO time, you never get break time, you don't get time in your car by yourself. You aren't able to stop at Starbucks and get the pink drink. I always recommend the pink drink for our nursing mamas.
yeah.
um but we never get a break as moms, right? And even like my second son right now, he's 3, and only mama can do anything right. And I'm like, no, son, other people can do stuff right, but he won't let anyone else take him out of his car seat right now. Daddy can't put his pajamas on. Daddy can't draw a bath correctly. Even his grandparents can't do anything correctly. And so it's just so hard as a mom that even the other night I was like, please let your dad do it. Mommy's exhausted.
Mm,
Please. But no, mommy still had to get him dressed, right?
mm,
And so, as a mom, I just hate that we're told we're doing nothing, because we are doing so much. And I feel like, I don't know about you, but I put the expectations on my shoulders, that the house has to be perfect and picked up and vacuumed every day. We're the ones having to do the grocery shoppings with the babies with us, right? Maybe you do grocery pickup. I prefer to still shop for my own stuff and go through the aisles.
mhm,
um we're having to cook all the foods, and you feel like you can't go out to eat, because I don't know about you, but I feel like I can't do anything extra because I'm not contributing to the bank account. So unless I have a Starbucks gift card or a coffee place gift card, I can't go buy me a coffee. I can't buy me anything extra at the grocery store. I can't go out for brunch with my girlfriends because I feel awful that I spent any money out of the bank account that I did not contribute to, even though we contributed for years before we were stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
And so I hate that for moms, that we feel that way, even though we are doing wonderful work of raising our children, investing in them. And I truly try hard, especially during the summer, to play outside and play water table, do chalk with them, find those cool things on Instagram. Like the other day, I was grading chalk and adding water to it to, use chalk for painting, right? Like
Yeah.
we try to go above and beyond to make sensory bends and be Montessori conscious, right?
Mhm.
With all the things. And still run a household. Whereas it was so much easier, I feel like, sometimes to just run a household and go to work, because the mental load, I feel, is so much less.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I work 24/7.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, 24/7. And I'm a single mom with 2 kids, and I
Mhm.
have my own
Mhm.
health issues, and I gotta make
Sure.
sure they're fed, the house is clean, nothing's
Mhm.
rotting, laundry, and there's 2 cats on top of it. So it used to rub me the wrong way when people say that, but now
Mhm.
I just, like, whatever,
Mhm.
right? And to not let it impact us, but for some mom, it does
Mhm.
impact us. Right now, I feel like I'm sleep deprived. Right? But we go on and carry on and do the best that we
Mhm.
can. And
Mhm.
yeah, for people who judge, my gosh, I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm like, do you want to do what I do? I can
Mhm.
swap you for a few hours or a day, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I would say that's where it's good to have a community around you, right? That you can go to your friend who's also a stay-at-home mom, or, I even have moms in my life that are older than me, right? They're like in their 60s or 70s, and I couldn't call them at any time and be like, hey, I'm really struggling with this, right? Or I really need some advice on this. And you aren't going to get any judgment because they were also stay-at-home moms for a time. But I just feel like it's so good to have not only community around you in the same age that they understand what you're going through, but also have older moms also invest their time into you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'm gonna love the next section we're gonna talk about
Okay.
because it's been in the news, especially during the pandemic. There was a point that a woman was asked to leave a restaurant because she was breastfeeding her newborn.
Mm,
Oh, I wish society would look at women's body parts, any body parts, as a gift because
mhm,
breastfeeding is nothing that anyone should be ashamed about. I'm
mhm.
going to let you speak on that. Yeah, let me know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. And so I hate that women are being asked to leave, right? And we're also being asked to cover up. And those poor babies, I know my boys, they would like hit the blanket or whatever you have on you, right? And they're like, no, I need some fresh air. No, I want to see what's going on, right? But
Mhm,
as a society, we're supposed to cover up, or we're supposed to go to the bathroom and sit on a toilet, heaven forbid,
mhm,
to get out of the way. And so I do love that we are starting as a community to start making lactation rooms, right? And so here in the United States, especially at major league parks, like we live close to the Cubs, we live close to Cincinnati Reds, they have nursing rooms now. They're air conditioned. They have beautiful chairs for us to sit in that are comfortable. Usually there's some diaper stocks, some wipes, some things for moms that are amazing that we can get out of the heat, right? um but it would be nice as a society that we don't have to cover up, because we aren't trying to be disgusting. We're just trying to feed our babies, right? But it's also on mom's comfort level on what she wants to do, and where she wants to be. And so I know I had some moms that they were really like, we don't want anyone to see us in public. And so they would pump and bring out their breast milk. And I think that is fantastic, right?
mhm,
Um, and so I never want moms to feel shamed for what they're doing. And especially recently, if we look back 6 months ago, we had a formula shortage. I had moms asking, like, if you see this, please pick it up and I will come to your house so I can feed my baby.
oh,
Right. And so, when you think about it, well, I would say we aren't going to run out of breast milk. Sometimes our breast milk dips, right? And we need to work on increasing it. Um, but your breast milk's going to be there, right, to feed your baby. And so that is what's giving them great nutrition. And the thing I love about that is also, you talked about your son was sick the other day. I loved that if my son got sick, the breast milk was actually healing him, because their saliva goes into our breasts and our breasts know what to produce differently.
yeah.
And I get messages from mom all the time that say, oh my gosh, I'm sick. I have a cold. Should I stop breastfeeding my baby so that they also do not get the cold? And I say, no, what you need to do is breastfeed them more, because you're giving them all of these vitamins and minerals back into them so they don't get sick too. Plus, by the time you're sick, you've already been sick, right? Like your baby's already been exposed. And so the best thing to do is keep nursing, and maybe even nursing a little more, because they might start to feel crummy too. So that breast milk's actually going to help them.
Yeah.
So, going back to your original question, I hate that us moms feel that way. And it's okay to say, no, I don't have to leave. It's my right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, you're right. And breast milk, even in labs, they can't make it.
Exactly.
Yeah, there are
Mm-hmm.
certain things in the breast milk that you can't find anywhere else other than in the breast milk.
Mm-hmm.
And Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, it's even crazy to think about like when they look at your milk all the time. So I also say label your milk, AM milk and PM milk, right? If you're pumping. And so AM milk in the morning is going to be like more vibrant, have more nutrition, right? But your nighttime milk has melatonin in it. And so it's going to help put your baby to sleep, help them sleep longer at night for you, hopefully, right? That's our goals as mom, that we sleep longer at night.
Mhm.
And so I always say label your milks because your milk is so much different from morning to nighttime. With our second son, I was away from him. We moved. And so I was away from him for 3 days. And so I was pumping exclusively for 3 days while my mom had him so we could move, pack the house, all the things, right? And so it was crazy to see my milk progress like through the day. Like sometimes in the morning, it looked like Gatorade, bright yellow, and then by nighttime it would be white,
Mhm.
and sometimes it's like clear, and it's just crazy like to look at pumping moms journeys. They even talk about like the blue milk, especially if you drink like blue Gatorade or if there's red in it, especially moms freak out about the red, there might be some blood in it and they're like, oh, my kid can't drink it. But if I were to nurse my kid, I have no idea what color my milk is today because I didn't see it,
Yeah.
right? And so it's just crazy to see how much it changes, especially if you're a pumping mom.
Yeah, you're right. I had so much breast milk. I,
Mm-hmm.
I I had to freeze a box of it. I was like a cow. It was
Yeah.
mind blowing. It was too much.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about breast health. Um,
Okay.
I had my son 6 years ago, right? You might have to help me. When it gets plugged, I forgot all
Mm-hmm.
the names, but please help me out.
Like a clogged duck. Uh-huh.
Yes, yes, there are other names
Okay.
too. Matitis or something.
Oh, mastitis. Mm-hmm.
Matitis, and there are
Mm-hmm.
other names as well.
Sure.
How can women take care of their
Mm-hmm.
breast health and their baby at the same time?
Absolutely. So the one of the biggest reasons that you are getting clogged ducts or mastitis is because you aren't emptying your breast completely, right? And so I know specifically when I had my second son, and this is so true on lots of moms' journeys, their second and third baby. You know, once your milk comes in, your body remembers it, right? They're like, oh, yeah, we did this.
Mm,
I remember how to do this. And then they're like, oh, yeah, I need to make enough milk for a 1 year old. And you're like, no, 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 it's the size of a walnut. It needs an ounce today. But yet your breast made 5 to 6 ounces. And so you need to be pumping that out because one, it's all about supply and demand, right? And so if you aren't using it, you're going to lose it. But at the beginning, if you're not emptying your breast, that's when you are going to get those clogged ducts. And so that's milk that literally sits in your breast and then it starts to harden, and then the rest of the milk won't flow. So then your breast starts to get red, hot, irritated,
mhm,
right? And so the best thing to do is pump it out, or just let your baby suck on your breast until it sucks out. And so I've also, there's lots of different ways to do it, right? Those are your two best ways. I do have a friend that has taught me recently, also a lactation consultant, to do breast gymnastics. It sounds so funny,
I've never
but
heard
we're supposed to. I know it's something new. I've also learned it too. I'm sorry I can't tell you who came up
Oh,
with this doctor something. I'm sorry about that. But anyway, so with your breast, right? And so with your breast, have my handy dandy little demo if we're watching this live. So with your breast, you're supposed to be moving it up and down and around slowly, like lifting them up and going around to try to work that clog out, right? And so like massaging it, but then also gentle, be very gentle with your breast, trying to get that clog out of your breast.
mhm.
Okay. That's one of the best things you can do for it. Now, with mastitis, that's when you're getting an infection. And so, moms, if you have a fever, please go see your doctor right away. Please go to an emergency room. Never go to bed with a fever.
Mm,
Um, that is just not good. You're going to wake up worse. And so you do need to get on medications. And tell your doctor specifically, or the ER, wherever you go, say, I am nursing. Please give me medications that I can still nurse.
Mm.
There's also nursing hotlines you can call to always say, like, hey, is it okay if I take this because I don't feel well? I have a cold. Can I take this? Because a lot of medicines for allergies are going to dry out, which also means it's going to dry out your breast milks.
Mm.
And so be really careful to not dry up your breast milk on accident because you're sick. There's lots of stuff you can take. Maybe it won't hit it as strong the first time,
Mm.
but we really want to keep that breast milk and not dry it all up.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. When you were talking about pumping, I know that some moms, they don't pump at all. They don't believe in it, they don't
Yep,
like it, and they think that the milk is not as good or fresh when they
mm-hmm.
pump and leave it somewhere else. What are your
Sure.
thoughts on that? I don't think there's any right or wrong way, but I want to hear
Mm-hmm.
your thoughts.
Yeah. So specifically with pumping, I don't see anything wrong with it. I didn't pump a lot. But I did like pumping, especially when I went to work. Plus, also, I like to have date nights with my husband. And so, to be able to have a date night, you need to have milk at home. Now, do you have to go buy an electric pump? Absolutely not. One thing I try to teach moms is use hand compressions, right? And so being able to pull the milk out by yourself. Or the other thing I love is a haka. And so it's not sitting at my desk right
What's
now. I'm
that?
sorry. So it's a silicone device. Do you want me to get up and get it? I can see it right over here. Let
Yeah,
me.
yeah, sure.
Okay, hold
I'm
on just a second.
so interested to know more.
Okay, here we go. So this is called a haka. It's just a silicone device.
Okay, okay, yeah.
So it's not really a breast pump, right? It's not
Yeah.
supposed to pull milk out, but it's supposed to capture all the milk that's leaking out of your breast. Okay, so we're going to do a little demonstration. So you're supposed to fold back the plastic part.
Yeah.
Then you have your breast, you put it over.
Yeah.
You're supposed to squeeze the air out of it and then pop it. Of course, this isn't like a real breast, so it's not
Yeah.
going to stay.
Yeah.
But you squeeze all the air out of it, you put it over the nipple, and then it's supposed to suction to the breast. And
Oh,
so then, as you're breastfeeding, let's say on the left side, then this would be on the right side, and it's going to catch all your milk, right? And so
yeah.
I know I would leave just a little bit, right? And so instead of having my breast pad soaked with milk, I could have, the extra milk. And so I would usually catch about an ounce, especially in the morning after your baby's just slept 6 or 8 hours. Then you have extra milk in your fridge.
Wow.
Um,
Cool.
yeah. And so even if, like, let's say you don't believe that it's still not as good fresh, that's fine. You can still do plenty of things with the extra milk. I always say if your baby has a really bad rash on their bottom, stick them in the tub, throw breast milk in it, even expired breast milk. You aren't supposed to use breast milk if it's been in a deep freezer for after a year. Most people say 6 months if it's just in your freezer that you're opening every day. Try to put it as far back as you can. But I always say throw it in the bath. It's going to heal it better than any cream you can use.
Yeah.
You can also, on those stretch marks, rub in a little bit of breast milk, and it's supposed to help your breast milk go away, right? I have a whole blog post on a lot of things you can use for your breast milk, especially if you're crunchy, if you want to make soap with it, lotions with it, all those kind of things. So,
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So also my cousin who has 11 kids, she don't have time to sit down and pump, or even they all have those hand-free pumps, the LV, the Willow, right? So it's just go, but it's not going to empty your breast as well as an electric pump that's plugged into the wall. But it's good if you're on the go, you're driving, something like that, right? You could even be doing a Zoom call and have it in and no one would know.
Yeah.
So, but you don't have to pump. It's not mandatory. You don't have to, but I would say please educate yourself on doing breast compressions so that if you are a little more full or out on a date and need to relieve a little bit of pressure, that you can get rid of some of that extra milk on your breast so that you aren't getting a clogged duct or mastitis.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I think
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like in the States, but I know here in the hospital there are so many team members and resources. They had a lactation nurse,
Mm-hmm.
and that was working with me and
Mm-hmm.
with other new moms as well. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's so important. Did you notice that the number went down when it comes to lactations specialists during the pandemic?
I would say yes, because at the hospital I delivered at and the nurses that I knew there, they got rid of non essential personnel, right? And so my friend that was a lactation consultant, they said, well, your position's really been eliminated. So if you want a job, you have to go back into labor and delivery.
Wow.
And so where I delivered, it's not mandatory to be a lactation consultant as the nurses, but they do have them all take continuing ed classes to understand. So not all of them are the same, but my friend Kate, of course, she was amazing because she was a labor and delivery nurse and an IBCLC.
Mhm.
And so that was amazing, but she had to no longer be an IBCLC as her job full time, just checking on mom. She also had to help deliver babies, and they might call her into, hey, someone else is struggling. Can you please go over here instead? So, yes, I do feel I saw during the pandemic. And so it is nice that I can see moms on Zoom and help them out from all over the country, right? Especially since my platform is tongue tie, we can talk about that and what it looks like and getting a team behind them.
Mhm.
That everything goes correctly. So good things have come out of the pandemic that you can reach anyone really in the world at any time through these awesome platforms.
Yeah, yeah. I can't say I know what it's like to have a baby during the pandemic because I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't
Yeah.
with all the mass stuff that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember throughout the pandemic there was it rallies, or I forgot the proper word for it, where workers were laid off, and there were healthcare professionals that were needed, but they didn't have certain qualifications and they just sent them home. I'm like, to
Mm-hmm.
do what? They can be trained and provide help.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I felt like everyone was short staffed, and during the pandemic, actually, my husband ended up being at home for some of it. And so I could go back into work. So he was watching the kids at home and working because there wasn't a lot of work to do. He was in sports and sports was shut down. So he didn't really have a lot to do. And so I was like, well, I can go back to work because I'm medical and we're needed and there's a huge shortage. So I actually went into work back at a nursing home. And so there's two sides of the nursing home. So you would enter the COVID free side during the day. You had to do all your work with all your patients there. Then you would leave the building, walk in another door, and then there would be a whole nother area of either A, COVID patients, or B, they had just come out of the hospital and they were in a 14-day quarantine before they could be moved to the other side.
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, everyone had a shortage. And so it was a shame how many people have left the medical field because we were overworking everyone
Yeah.
during that time. How many people passed away? We still need to think about that. How many people
Hmm.
caught COVID? I know I worked with some older nurses. I didn't know anyone that passed away, but some of the older nurses that would work in the nursing home or the older CNAs or, even our cleaning staff
Wow.
that were older that ended up getting COVID. And then, of course, us as staff members having to test for COVID twice a week,
Hmm.
standing in the line, testing to make sure we were all safe to work there as well.
Yeah, yeah. Overworked and underpaid.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I want to focus a little bit on you're talking about going on dates, postpartum and
Mhm.
sexual relationship, I would call it,
Yeah.
with your the partner. I
Hmm.
don't know if
Hmm.
I'm making sense. It wasn't an actual question. After having a baby, not every mom wants to be touched, especially their breasts, if
Right.
they're sensitive,
Hmm.
and they're in pain.
Hmm.
I was traumatized. I'm gonna speak for myself. I just
Yeah.
want to be left alone and not
Hmm.
be touched. What are
Hmm.
your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think it's hard as a new mom because you are touched so much during the day, right? You're breastfeeding, you're holding your baby, but yet you feel awful putting them down, but yet you're supposed to sleep train them and they're supposed to cry it out, right? There's so many different philosophies. And I always say, do what's best for your family, right? Do what's best for your mental health, right? You're not supposed to hold your baby. You're going to, break the baby or like love it too much, right? And so, but I also enjoyed like having them have a nap on me, right? Like
Mhm.
maybe I wasn't napping, or you're supposed to do it in a safe space and
Mhm.
all those good things. But you want the cuddles with your baby, but you also want to be left alone sometimes and not touched. So even we have a dog. And so then she'd be like, oh, good, you put the baby down. I'm going to come sit on your lap. She's a 40-pound lab. She does not need to be on my lap, but she wanted to be like close to me and touch me. Right. And so sometimes I would just kick her out of the room and lock her out because I'm like, I don't want the dog also touching me. I need to not be touched. Right. And so, also as moms, we go back to that 6-week appointment, our postpartum appointment, which I didn't realize until the other day. I saw a statistic 60% of moms cancel that appointment. I had no idea that you were allowed to cancel. I thought it was kind of mandatory.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But I also wanted to be checked out and does everything look okay down there, right? Because I don't want to look at it, but let's make sure it looks fine.
Yeah.
Um, and so I remember asking the doctor, like, oh, am I allowed to go back to regularly scheduled activities? And she was like, absolutely. And I was like, can we say no? Because it makes me really, really nervous. Right.
Yeah.
And she was like, you can say whatever you want when you get home, but I'm saying everything looks fine and you can go back and do whatever you want to do.
Hmm.
And I still remember like just being so nervous,
Hmm.
right? You're just so nervous about like, how's it going to feel? Like, is everything going to be okay? Is it going to hurt? Like, how fast is too fast and too slow? And you're just so nervous, right? And one thing I also tell moms, especially as a lactation consultant, you never know when your milk's going to let down, right? So usually like try to breastfeed the baby and then go have sexy time.
Hmm.
Um but also some moms don't know, and especially if you didn't take a breastfeeding class, that if you orgasm, your milk could let down and then you could start spraying everywhere. And I think that really surprises moms, right? Because you're like, relax. That's when it happens, right? Also, I tell moms like in the shower, it's a warm shower, you're relaxed, maybe taking more time in the shower because it's quiet.
Hmm.
And so your milk might start letting down and you're just like letting out milk, right? Or one of my friends, I told her it might shoot to the back of the shower stall. And she called me and she goes, it happened. It happened in the shower. And I was like, I told you it would, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
and so I don't feel like stuff like that's talked about enough. Like that's typical, that's normal. It's nothing, to be ashamed of. Maybe have like a washcloth there if it like bothers you, if you're okay with wearing like a bra with breast pads in it, if that's okay, that's fine. I will let you know, moms, it is scary the first time. It's also like right after you have your baby, like it's scary to poop the first time too. It is. It is. It totally is. And so take those stool softeners. That's the secret sauce. Make sure you take those.
Yeah.
But all of those things are scary because you've never been through it and nobody talks about it.
Hmm.
One thing I love to recommend to moms is to go see a pelvic floor therapist. Those are usually physical therapists, but not necessarily, right? And so even to go see one and you maybe have sexy time for the first time and you're like, ow, it's super painful. That's not okay. It should not be painful after you have a baby. So something's wrong, something's misaligned,
Mhm.
and they can give you exercises and help you out. Again, that sounds super scary, right? But I know both of mine, I saw two different ones and they were both females, right? They've been through it. They're super nice. They chat about the weather usually. But it's nice to have someone also help you with that scar tissue, because usually you have a lot of scar tissue down there because we have stitches. And so to massage out that scar tissue is also going to help for
Mhm.
it to not be super painful.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
I had C-sections with both of
Okay.
my kids, and
Yeah.
pregnancy doesn't do me good at all. And I
Mm-hmm.
know many other mothers might struggle. I
Mm-hmm.
had severe preeclampsia with both of my
Oh,
kids.
okay.
And I was at the point of possibly getting a stroke.
Mm-hmm.
And both of deliveries were emergency.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to come out and they were losing weight. I didn't even look pregnant. I was very tiny.
Mm-hmm.
I know so many other women struggle with that. What are your thoughts on those who's had C-sections? Because it's completely different when we deliver naturally and
Mm-hmm.
C-sections.
Yeah. So again, I've actually learned a lot recently because I also hold summits. So mamas, come find me. I'm holding another summit in August to talk about all these things. And so I also didn't realize with C-sections, right? There's so many different things you can ask for in a C-section, especially if it's a planned C-section.
Mhm.
And so something I didn't realize is to also say, like, with a C-section, specifically with your scar, is that I believe it's 9 layers. I could be wrong on this. Sorry, moms. But that you can say, please sew me up 1 layer at a time. I'm okay with you taking your time because it's going to help in the long run
Mhm.
with your scarring, with your pain. I also didn't realize you should be massaging your C-section scar and breaking up all of that scar tissue. And that could be causing a lot of pain as well in that area, which I did not realize until recently. And they also say it's never too late to start this. So even the C-section people I've worked with recently, they said we're working with people in their 60s and 70s that are in pain and they didn't realize it was due to their C-section scar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so, with a C-section, there's a lot of things I didn't realize, that you can ask for, like even the clear drape, if you want the clear drape, so you can see everything. So I know lots of people feel robbed of not having that birth experience because you didn't get to see everything happen, right? And
Right.
you can even ask, I hear most doctors say no, but to pull your own baby out of your belly. And I'm like, okay. I mean, if that's what you want, that kind of grosses me out. But because then there's all of your organs. I don't know. I'm not very good
Yeah.
medically, even though I work in the medical field. It's kind of funny. Um, so, but also, I can't speak to sexy time with a C-section scar. But again, you've just had major surgery
Mhm.
yourself, right? And so we're still sending these moms home at like 48, 72 hours. And like, here's a human, you can't lift over 10 pounds. Best of luck to you,
Yeah. Oh my
right?
gosh, they tried to send me home early. And
Mhm. Oh,
my blood pressure was still so high after both of
mm,
my kids,
mhm,
specifically my second. He was in the NICU and I was in emerged getting fluids and things to bring it down.
mm,
But they
mhm,
were running out of space in the hospital and tried to send me home early. I said, I'm
mm.
not going anywhere. You guys just cut my gut. I can barely walk. Like,
Right.
where am I gonna go? Right? It's
Mhm.
advocacy. I've always advocated
Absolutely.
for myself. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. Go, you can
Mhm.
get security if you want. I'm in pain. I can barely walk. This is a
Uh-huh.
hospital. I'm not going.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I think that's wonderful. And that's one thing I'm trying to teach through my summits is you don't realize that in a hospital how much you can say no to. Like they push you into things and it's okay to say no. And I specifically say, make sure you walk in with a birth plan
Yeah.
I've known many mamas that don't. I've even encouraged some women in my life, like make sure you have a birth plan. Like I will send them PDFs that people have sent me from other doulas. Like
Yeah.
make sure you're advocating for what you want. And
Mhm.
then I'm never surprised when they call me and I go, so how'd your birth go? I don't want to talk about it. It didn't go well. I told you to walk in with a birth plan, right? Like I sent you all the information and you're shocked it went horrible, right? And so, I feel, in at least like where I live, right? You're allowed to support people, right? And so I had my husband, you can have your partner, right? You might want your mom. Um,
Mm.
we had a doula each time because I was like, she knows what she's talking about. Like,
Mm.
she's been here, she's been in other births, she knows what to advocate for. Even at one point, she was like, I looked at your placenta and it looks great. Do you want to see it? And I was like, absolutely not. That sounds disgusting. But she was like, I can tell the whole placenta came out, right?
Mhm.
And so it's like stuff you wouldn't think to look for or know about that they know and they're advocating for. Like even with our second son, the doctor that was supposed to deliver wasn't there. It was a Sunday, a horrible day to deliver, in my opinion. And so, but you don't get a choice when they come, right?
Yeah.
And so, I wanted delayed cord clamping. I had a birth plan. I may have walked in when I was 10 centimeters dilated. Don't recommend that at all, mamas. And so it was kind of like a rush to the finish.
Mhm.
And so she hadn't looked at my birth plan because she wasn't my doctor. We hadn't discussed it. And so she goes and she was like, okay, let's go ahead and cut the cord. And I go, no, I want delayed cord clamping. And she goes, there's no research on that. And I was like, actually, there's a ton of research on delayed cord clamping. And so I remember my doula being very big on like, please respect her wishes. She has asked, like, please stop. And you could tell she was irritated. It was a Sunday, but it was like 8:20 in the morning. I'm like, I let you sleep in. You're welcome. Um, and she was like still upset that she was there. And you could feel the whole attitude of the room of like, it's Sunday. I don't want to be here. And I'm like, you're on call, sister. Like, be here and be in a good mood. Like,
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Their mood can truly be impactful in good ways and bad ways, and it can
yeah.
take the joy out of the experience, especially for
Mm-hmm.
first-time moms. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before I
So,
let you go, let's touch a
yeah.
little bit on home births gone wrong.
Okay.
Yeah. If someone wants to do home births, what should
Mm-hmm.
they know? What should they do and not do?
Mm-hmm.
Is it right
Yeah.
to
So,
one an ambulance and all that?
oh boy. Okay. Um, I've never had a home birth, so let's start with that. But I've had a cousin that's had 10 of them. So maybe we should call my
Oh,
cousin.
wow.
No, I know. Yeah. They even, because she's had so many home birth, they actually have a hot water spigot on the outside of their house so that they can fill the water tub quickly. So maybe that's a pro tip if you're going to have a lot of kids. I don't know. But for home births, I really say educate yourselves. Especially with getting a good midwife, a good team around you. Again, I always advocate for a doula because a doula is not there for your baby. The doula is there for you.
So how do you feel about home births?
Yeah, I mean, I personally didn't have a home birth. But that's just how I felt. I didn't feel comfortable at home having a home birth. And I also didn't understand the whole cleanup process. So that kind of grossed me out personally, even though your midwife, by the way, will clean it up for you. But I say just have a good team around you, right? Have a good midwife that can help you out. And usually there's like a team, like they might bring 2 or 3 midwives with them. I always say make sure you have a doula. The doula is the best to support the mom. The doula is not there for the baby. So the doula is always going to be paying attention to mom, helping you with your pain, changing positions, getting you ice, chapstick, making sure your favorite music's on, reading you affirmations. And so I know personally when I was in the hospital, side note, there was a point where they thought they needed to take my son away from me. And so I knew I wouldn't be alone. And so when my husband said, can I follow our baby? I said, absolutely, because we hired this doula. And so you keep eyes on our son and you can advocate for anything that they're saying they needed. They ended up not taking him out of the room.
Mhm.
But I knew I wouldn't be alone. So I knew I wouldn't be having a panic attack that, like, no one's paying attention to me and I'm having a panic attack and freaking out right now, you know. I think home births are great. I would say definitely educate yourself. And especially if you have the meeting, if you are going to have some pre-existing conditions going into it, maybe gestational diabetes, there's a lot of factors that you should not be having a baby at home, and you do need to be in a medical environment. But I believe if you're around the right medical team, they're going to tell you no and say you are not a good candidate to be having this baby at home. But I also feel you're going to be more relaxed in your home environment, right? And your labor might progress more quickly. Whereas I was getting to a hospital. And so in my head, I was so worried that we wouldn't make it to the hospital and I would have this baby in the car for our first birth that I stopped progressing until we moved to the hospital. And so when we showed up, I was so disappointed I was only a 4. But after we got to the hospital, checked in, told I was a 4, I could relax that I knew where I was going to be. That then within 2 hours, I had the baby because I finally felt like I relaxed and we could progress on with having this baby. So, with all that to be said, just make sure you're educating yourself and make sure you have a good team around you for a home birth.
Yeah, I agree. Well, what an amazing conversation this has been.
Yeah.
Come back anytime.
Okay.
Yeah, thank
Well,
you
thank you
so
so
much.
much for having me. I super appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much, too, for your time. I appreciate it.